Kiss My Chaos. Taking stories of trauma into triumph while living life in the middle and everything in between. All views are expressed solely of the host, guests, and for entertainment purposes only. You don't like it? Well, you can kiss our chaos. Here are your hosts, Abigail Dark and D.T. Hudson.
Hey everybody, we're back. It's Dan. Nobody has come up with a cool name for me yet, so I'm just going to go with my birth name, Dan, here with Abigail Dark. And Abby, how's your week?
It's good. Speaking on your name, you're too cool already.
Oh, yeah,
you don't need to have a cool name.
Absolutely not true. Not true. This week, I've been excited. It's kept me up at night because I have a lot of questions, and we have Troy White with us, and Troy has an amazing story, amazing organization, and you're a busy guy, Troy.
Yeah, I am.
I tell you what, why don't you, if you'd like, tell us a little bit about yourself, not necessarily in general. Where'd you grow up? Are you local?
I actually grew up in the western part of the state, so I grew up in Mandan, Bismarck area, and I moved here in '92 to go to school I actually was going to go into art. I was trying to decide between art and psychology. Didn't think I was smart enough to be a psychologist, so I did take psychology, and I wasn't a tortured soul. Like, I didn't wear black, and I wasn't really that great of an artist, and so I combined the two and went into advertising, and so that's what I did.
I like advertising. I'm no good at it.
Yeah,
it can be a stressful profession. I mean, competitive.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and there's deadlines, and I was always kind of like, it's not. It's just an arbitrary date that you set. It's not a big deal, and it wasn't fulfilling. And I had my own agency, and it still wasn't fulfilling. I just felt like there was more, and I was kind of searching for it, and I ended up here.
I love that. We search. We search for our purpose. We search for our life's purpose every day, I think. And I'm still looking for mine. But we get our hands on a lot of things, and sometimes it's right in front of us the whole time. And sometimes it can be very personal because it's like, you know what? That was kind of me, whether it be growing up, whether it be experiences that have happened to you in life. And maybe that's why we're sitting so close to each other today, because I broke a microphone.
You didn't break it. It's just technology.
Yeah, for sure.
I met Troy White at our networking group. We do that on Wednesday mornings. Very great group. Great way to meet a bunch of different people. And we kind of got to talking. And upon getting to know him, he does amazing things, like things that you would never think of, like outside of the box type of things. You have Beyond the Barriers.
Yep.
And somebody who gets into that kind of work I'm always curious, what brought you to get to that point?
God, there's so many things, and sometimes it's like you want to go in this direction, but you don't know how, and then somehow life just shoves you off the cliff sometimes. But it's just, are you talking about the jail part of it, or just everything?
I would say as a person, like internally, you were into psychology, going to school. Like, what brought you to want to understand the underlying causes of people's minds and like how they work and why they do what they do?
Yeah, I've always wanted. I've just had this desire to understand people, understand why they do the things that they do, what makes them tick, and I just an observer of people's behaviors and wanted to understand them. And I just felt like if I could understand people, then I can overlook, some of their flaws, and didn't really know what drove that. But I had severe anxiety. And nobody knew it because I covered it up. I had a false sense of confidence that I portrayed, and was, just sense of humor was my way of dealing with everything, and yeah, just was, but not, I was just all a facade. I was so insecure, and I covered it up with, outgoing personality, smile, and nobody knew. Nobody had any idea. And it wasn't until I was probably, 30, 36, around there. I have twin daughters, and they were about 6 years old. And they were talking about their grandfathers, and they said, it's kind of like dawned on them. They're like, where's your dad? Why don't we ever see him? I said, well, he does things that are just not nice, and I don't want you guys to be around that, and I don't want to be around that. And they said, well, like what? Is he mean? And I said, well, he can be when he drinks. And they said, when he drinks what? And I was like, damn. At 3 years old, I knew it. At 6 years old, I knew what that meant. And they didn't. And so I think that was the first time that I started, that I realized what I had gone through. Because if somebody would have asked me, did you, go through, were you abused? I'd have said no. Our house was domestic violence. Abuse. It was, my dad was a police officer. And just a lot of anger and rage. And unfortunately, when we would call 911, nobody show up because they were his friends, or they were afraid of him. And so I just said, yeah, no, we don't see him, And I think that was the first time I actually realized what I had gone through. When I imagined them going through what I went through, because I never thought it was that bad. It was just how Dad was, and but when I imagined them going through that it hurt me to imagine them going through those things. And so I had to look at myself and what I had gone through and realize. And so I started writing down things that I had experienced, and pretty intense stuff. Like, my dad held a gun on my mom's head, and said he was going to blow her brains out. And he would call and say he's going to kill himself. And then he would go from anger to crying and rage to crying. And then he would actually pull the trigger and then just sit silent and just listen to us cry. And then he'd come back on. And I used to think, why would you do that? That's just it messes with you, And I couldn't call anybody, because he said if I called anybody, he would shoot whoever comes to the door and then kill himself. And so that one time I was on the phone for like 8 hours.
With him?
With him, yeah.
Okay.
And one time it was when my wife at the time, she was sitting, with me the whole entire time. And by the time, because the last time he like pulled the trigger 3 times and was silent, and he never came back on. So I did call the police, and this is, we're 3 hours away. And by the time everything was said and done, it was like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And the police called and said, now we have him in custody and everything. He's okay. Everybody's okay. So I got off the phone, and my wife at the time looks at me. She said, are you okay? And I said, yeah, why? And she just looked at me confused and said, how can you be? And I said, this is just normal. And so she said, that really hit me hard. And she just looked at me and said, that's really sad. And I was never able to express that I was hurt or upset or anything like that. It was dismissed or, belittled or downplayed or whatever it was. So I started making this list of experiences that I had, and it was like 14 pages long. And this is coming, I never thought it was that bad. Still, I have a hard time, even when I say, I was, I have PTSD. And I'm like, God, it wasn't that bad. So I took this list, and I went to a psychologist, and I said, here's why I'm here. And I had been to counseling, I had been to a psychologist, psychiatrist, And nobody had ever asked me about those things. Nobody had ever talked about those things. And so I went to the psychologist. I said, here is why I'm here. And you just take the rest of the hour and read this, and I'll come back next week. And so that's what happened. And he had this puzzle. When I came back the next week, he had this puzzled look on his face, and he's like, kept looking at the list and then look at me, and he said, why are you not in jail? And I said, why should I be? And he said, yeah. I said, why? What I do? Yeah. And and so he said, usually someone who has this much trauma is in jail. And that always stuck with me. Like, then why aren't we treating trauma? Mm-hmm. But it was kind of the same thing. It was, oftentimes we talk about things, but they don't get to the root cause of the why. Help us, they give you the what, well, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? I'm feeling this, and here's what you should think, and try to think this way, and try to feel this way. They don't get you to the reason why or the how to change it. And so I just wanted, I'm like, I want to feel better. I don't want to have this at all anymore. And, here's some breathing techniques. God damn it, I know how to breathe. Yeah. I'm not downplaying those things. They help in that moment, but I don't want to have them in the first place. And so I tried everything. I was just desperate to not feel this anymore. And I was afraid every single day. I was afraid of living. And then you're just surviving. You're not living. And so it was, I had taken this empowerment class, and they had, one of the lessons was on cognitive restructuring. I'm like, that kind of makes sense. But the way they had it, it was kind of like, if you don't like rainy days, but you like roses, and roses need rain, and so now you can like rainy days. And I'm like, no, I still don't. So what I wanted to do is understand why I don't like rainy days. Mm-hmm. And so just this really kind of struck me, and I just kind of took everything that made sense to me and that had worked, and understanding the different parts of psychology, that the different approaches, and I put together a cognitive model that was all encompassing, and then an approach to it that helped you understand why, and helped you understand your experiences and look at them through a different lens. And so, I created the upstream model and an approach, and it just adds so much clarity. And by the time you have to start digging up, and because people say, I don't want to talk about that's in the past. Well, it is, but it's still affecting you.
100%. I mean, that's just it. The past affects you, and it shapes you. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you attribute your anxiety to your father. Probably
just the living, just your condition,
being on edge, mm-hmm. Not knowing who you're going to get. And we're hearing more and more of that. And I'm hoping we're hearing more and more of it, not because it's happening, but people are coming forward and saying exactly what you're describing. Let's take an approach. We have to get creative on this approach, because I don't think there is a cure, and you can only cope for so long too. And like you were talking about breathing exercise, I think that's very beneficial in a panic attack or something like that. But you're not fixing anything. You're mitigating.
Right.
I mean, it's important to do, and it's important to know these things, and we're ever evolving. That's why I love a cognitive approach.
Right.
Because medicine doesn't fix everything. You have to, for me, it was described to me, my brain was rewired. And mm-hmm. I had to get into a different thought process.
Right.
And finding out the why was very difficult, exhausting, made it worse at first. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, after about 3 weeks, a switch started to turn on. And I started understanding a lot about myself and the why. And some of these smaller things that happened to me, they just added to the major things.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that, so I was working with just businesses in order to help change their culture, working with high-performing executives. I also worked with some nonprofits, worked for the school system with the teachers and the students, and also worked in recovery and addiction. And what I kept hearing over and over and over again is I've learned more in this first 2 hours than I have in the last 2 years of going to regular therapy or whatever it might be. And so that kind of led me into the jail. Kind of a fluke how that got in there, but it was powerful. But what the jail has helped me do in bringing my class there, the average jail stay is 20 days, and I only have an hour. So I have to come in there, and they're like, who in the hell is this guy? Because I do not, I don't have head and neck tattoos. I don't have, I'm just not, I don't look. So they're like, who is this guy? And I have to kind of gain their trust quickly, and then be able to reach them, and so that they understand. And so I've been able to refine this to make an impact in about an hour. And so, because the average stay is 20 days, so I might only see him once or twice, is it? And so to make it impactful. And so, yeah, but you're right. It's like after a while, it starts making sense, and you start seeing things differently. And that's what this model, I walk through a process, and they understand each step, and then you get kind of like, they almost kind of like they walk themselves into a corner to where it's like they have to see it this way. And then it's like a switch that just clicks. And that's what they describe. It's like, it just clicked. And I can see it in their faces. I can see like they're like reevaluating their entire life and all of their experiences. And it just makes sense to them. And the nice thing about this approach is that you're not reliving things until you actually start digging them up yourself, because it's like, I see things differently, and I can see this differently, and now you start digging into your past and with proper tools, and it's exciting. Actually, you start, it's like I feel different about it. I see this differently, and so that's what I keep hearing and witnessing and seeing. And I've, including the jail, I've had probably around 1,700 inmates that have gone through the program. And then, my regular clients. So I probably have, a couple thousand clients that I've worked with, and they all pretty much say the same thing, that it's been the most impactful thing.
And that's why we're so grateful you haven't taken the time with us today, because I think it's just begun.
Yeah.
How long have you been going into the jail?
About 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah. They had some kind of a program that it was like a Reignite. I think it was like it's a national program to bring skills, and they were going to get donors and sponsors and stuff like that. And so I applied to be a part of this program. I don't think they ever did anything with it. And finally, I just said, "Can I just come in?" And they said, "You mean like volunteer?" I said, "Yeah." And so I did. So I've been volunteering, and just every week I go into the jail, and for the last 3 years, and I felt a pull in that direction. They wanted more. They like, how do I take this class outside? And it's like I can't. I don't have any more capacity to, to do more for free. Mm-hmm. And then working with the women. So now I'm doing women's class Sunday nights, every Sunday, and but it's so fulfilling when you can hear and see their lives changing, and their families are noticing, and they're telling you how it's changing, and they've tried everything, other kind of treatment known to man in the last 40 years, and like, this makes sense to me, and I just it feels good that you're able to make that impact on them, because it grows exponentially. I have had 3 generations in the jail, with the father, the son and a daughter, and their son, and because it's if we don't, because people ask me, why do you want to help people who are, you know, hurting other people and doing bad things and breaking the law? It's like, because, you know, it feels good to help children and the victims, but that's the effect. We're helping the effect. We're not getting to the cause. And so when we start healing parents, then we are healing their children as well, and we're changing the trajectory of lives for generations.
Well, it's like a marathon.
Yeah.
I mean, versus a sprint. I mean, I think the programs are great and they're necessary, but you have an hour and you have to convince people who don't even know you. This is impressive. I mean, this is difficult to do, and not only what you're trying to convince them is to change their life, and they have to be accountable and they have to make the decision themselves, especially when the guidance isn't there.
Right. And
it takes a lot of talent, Troy, to be able to win someone over, especially in an environment where there's a lot of manipulation and vulnerability, and maybe some remorse. And as being a cop for as long as I have, we never really got to see that. Our business ended at the door.
Yeah.
And we were talking before we started this interview. I never got to see where they ended up unless I got called to there again, and
Right.
the recidivism is happening, and that was my experience with them. But we never knew the root cause.
Right.
And I think that's the key, getting to the root of
Right.
this. And
Right.
generational, oh yeah. I mean, we'd get called to the same house, and if one would move or pass, we'd still get called there. It was a generational thing.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant idea.
And you know, the difficult part about the jail is because it's a very short period of time. When you're in the prisons, that's where they have the long-term programs, and then you have weeks and, you know, many weeks to get this done. But like I said, it's roughly about 20 days. That's not even, you know, not even 3 weeks. And so I would say average, you know, is about 20 days. And but you're right, it's a lot of manipulation. So when I started talking about and telling people in the system, like, this is what they're saying. This is the effect it's having, and they'll like, yeah, they'll tell you anything, you know, and it's a controlled environment, and yeah, they're sober now, and just poo-pooing everything. And so that's why I did the videos. I was like, I want to interview them. I want to know why, because they were saying we've done all these programs. This is different. It goes deeper, and I have never been to any other of the programs that are in the prisons, or even I haven't gone through like treatment necessarily. So I wanted to know why it was different, what I was doing that was different, and why the program was different. And it was just dismissed. And I was saying, I'm not saying it's better. They're saying it's better. Right. And so I started doing surveys, and I surveyed like 200 inmates, and just random, just whoever wants to take it, you know, hand it in. And so 90%, first of all, here's what was really interesting. The average number of jail stays is 18 times.
Wow. And
the average number of jail times that they go to jail throughout their lifetime is 18. 90% of them have gone through some kind of a treatment program, or have like other jail program in prison. And so 90% of them have been to programs, and now they're in jail again. How can we say they're working? 92% of the guys I surveyed said that the Beyond the Barriers program was more effective, or much more effective, than any other program that they've taken. I also found that they're talking about this program with other inmates, and so outside of the class, I think it's 97% talk about this program with other inmates, and I think like 93% or something like that. I can't remember offhand. They hear other people talking about the program. You're getting. It's just kind of like I said, it's when you reach someone and it makes sense, they're excited because they're like, this is helping me, and now they're excited. They want to help other people, and I have so many of these guys I want to volunteer. I want to help other people. I want to do what you do because they know what it's like, and they want to help others.
That's true growth, and that is the investment that I think needs to be made. Have you seen a shift from the administration? In how they're accepting this now?
Yeah, definitely. And I can't say enough good about the Cass County Jail. They've been so willing to accommodate and help and allow me to bring cameras in there, and they give me the rules and they've been very helpful. And so I'm looking to prove it effective because it's cognitive based, so it's a evidence-based. We know a cognitive approach works, but they have to know that this program works and it's actually changing behavior. And so I'm going to working on some data right now that is showing the difference between people who have attended my program and who haven't, and the behavior, if behavior is different, and also the people who had been there before my program and after, so the same people, do they have less incidences of behavior problems after they've taken the program? So we're working on that data now, and so I'm excited to see what that shows.
I asked that question because I went to college with the sheriff. I've known him ever since college, and I could see his philosophy towards rehabilitation, corrections, law enforcement in general, where it would marry up very well with his philosophy. I think we're really fortunate to have him as a sheriff.
Yeah.
I get a pass speeding in the county, so but I know he also listens to this podcast.
Yeah.
Have you thought about, I know going into the jails and working with the incarcerated, but with you growing up with a father who obviously had unresolved issues, and bringing that home, it interests me that you went to the incarcerated instead of working with officers and things like that. Have you thought about bringing this full circle? You know it works with the incarcerated, but can it work with law enforcement also? Yeah,
there's been some conversations about that, because I do believe that one of the things that it's funny, because like you said it in your, when you in the social media, that I kind of have a no bullshit approach to things, and the guys know that. It's like there's no, well, they're like, where are the cookies, and I'm like, you don't get any cookies. You want cookies? Go someplace else. What I'm teaching you are the treats, but I have thought about why, because I look at them. I see them, and they're good people. My dad was a good man, and they have good hearts. They want to change. They don't know how, and they're. I ask them at the beginning of the class, I'm like, who wants to change? And every single one of them raises their hand. And I said, who's tried to change? Every single one of them raises their hand, and I'm like, and here you are. How do you feel? Who's screwed up? And they all raise their hand, and I'm like, how does that feel? And they said, like shit. I feel like I failed again. And I ask them, who knows how to change? Not a single one raises their hand, because they've never been taught how to change. And I really get into how your brain works. Like this is helping them understand how trauma affects you. And the ACE study, I don't know if you're familiar with adverse childhood experiences, and I've done the ACE study in the jail since 2019. Several times, and it's pretty impactful for them to understand that if they have a score out of 10, a score of 4 or higher, it significantly impacts them. Like if you have a score of 4 or higher, you're 1,220% more likely to attempt suicide, or 1,000% more likely to use intravenous drugs, or 700% more likely to abuse alcohol, 500% more likely to have depression, and just a slew of other things, even cancer and COPD and all kinds of other things. And the average, when they did this study back in the 90s, the average for men who had a score above 4 or higher was 9.2%. In the jail, it's 76% have a score of 4 or higher, compared to 9.2. And I showed them how trauma affects them, and we have thinking habits and how we even form habits, and we repeat things and we learn things, and how our brains learn and how we can reprogram those things, and show them how. And so then that does three things. They have to want to change, and we've already covered that. They want to change. They have to believe they can change. And when I show them that they can, that they learn, this is how you learn, and you've changed things before. You've created new habits, and these are thinking habits. And so now they believe they can change. And the third thing is that they're worth changing. And that's another part that I cover is their worth. I did do a Rosenberg self-esteem assessment. Did that for about 12 weeks to see if their self-esteem increases, and if it increases the more classes they attend. And I think it went from a 27 out of 40, a score of 27 without, when they first get in there and they haven't taken any classes yet, and after 5 classes it increased to 32. So that's 5 points in 5 weeks. So it increases substantially.
Yeah, that's a point a week. I mean,
Yeah.
that is progress.
Yeah.
And it's funny that Abby brought this up, because I one thing I have learned now that I'm getting closer to the end of my career, I take a different look at things through a different lens, as I think you should. And I imagine a group of individuals serving time at the local county jail for 20, 21 days, whatever their average stay is. Then I imagine you in front of a group of law enforcement officers, and there's not much difference between.
Yeah, and that was kind of my point before I went off on a tangent.
You're going to have to win them over and gain their trust.
Yeah, and that was the point I was going to make, and I went off on a little tangent there. But when it just clicks for these guys, and they come back the next week, and they're like, I can't unsee this, and I see it. I can see what you're talking about play out, and they're like, and the guards, they need this too. And I'm like, yes, because there's the power struggles, and they oftentimes they create situations that make their job harder. So yeah, I do think that would be beneficial, because I think as you know, that's a tough job.
It's a tough job.
You guys, they're constantly being, tested, berated, and it's tough.
Well, and honestly, the job has changed over the years, whether it be influence or politics or whatever you want to get. I don't care about any of that. I always cared about people and keeping the community safe.
Right.
And I would say 99% of the people I work with were the same. There is that group out there that is quite different, and like in any profession, it can give you a bad name.
Yep.
We're fortunate here.
Yeah.
I feel we're fortunate. Cracking through and training law enforcement in this is essential. Putting your feet in someone else's boots, I always say, and also for our military. But you can go days with nothing going on and be thrown into such utter violence and chaos, and you're right back out on the street, and now you're doing a report of somebody got their iPad stolen out of their car. That's not normal.
Right.
And if you say you're okay after something like that, you might be okay for a little while because you're still processing it. I was not okay.
Yeah.
I was not okay. It built up.
Yeah.
And that's why when my friends and I call my friends, decided to do a training program for law enforcement, it's hard. I have to win them over too. I get an hour.
Yeah.
And I'm like, who's this guy?
Yeah.
And I don't like talking about myself a whole lot, and people probably wouldn't believe that. But I don't. And but you have to.
Yeah.
Because it's firsthand experience.
Well, you're absolutely right. And that's, there's 30 to 50 guys in the classroom at a time. And and that was the other thing that they told me. It's like, this is not normal. We don't normally share like this. In groups of like 10 or 12, yeah, but with 30 to 50 guys in the room, no. And they're sharing, and they're we got guys who are breaking down crying, and guys are supportive. I mean, you would not believe, it just changes how you see these guys and the women too. It was a little bit different. With the women.
I was going to ask you about the women versus the men, like how the dynamic changes.
It's a little different. I mean, this is one thing, because the guys, a lot of it, and you'll understand this. A lot of it comes down to, respect. They want to be respected. Men want to be respected. So do women. But they, like, why was this a threat to you? And it's like, well, because they were disrespecting me. And I'm like, do you want to be respected? And they're like, yeah. You have to have, I don't take any crap from anybody kind of an attitude. So, because I want people to respect me. And I'm like, do you want them to respect you, or do you want them to fear you?
Two very different things.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, fear me. Yeah. And they're like, well, kind of both. What's the difference? And I said, here's the difference. I've been coming here for 3 years. And if I would say, I want you guys to clean up all the paper and pick up all the pencils and put your chairs in, and if you don't, you're going to be in lockdown. Then you're going to do it out of fear. But I said, for the last 3 years, I usually have like 5, 6 guys come up and want to talk to me afterwards. And by the time they leave, somebody has picked up everything, all the papers, and stacked them neatly and put the pencils away and collected and put them in the box, and everything's neat. And they don't do that because they're afraid of me. They do that because they respect me, because I respect them. And a lot of people think that, I'm coddling them, or that this is soft. It's not soft. It's strategic. It's getting to the heart and letting them know. That's why I say, I care about you guys. I do. I don't want you here. You don't need to be here. And I care. And I prove it to them. And so I literally had a guy text me the other day. He's like, it's hard for me to trust people. He said, and respect people. He said, but you got everything. You got the whole shebang. He said, he said, Troy, I would cut a MF for you. And I'm like, well, let's hope it doesn't get to that ever. But
I'm getting to that point too. I might cut somebody for you.
Yeah, well, it's quite an honor. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And so, but I see these guys through a completely different lens, and I think that if we do take a more strategic approach, we're going to have better outcomes for people. And we're going to, by putting people in jail, it's not solving a problem. Some people need to be off the street, yes, but if that's all we do, and we send them to the same things, and they just keep doing the same things, when we think about, so another thing that the average stays 20 days. It costs $114 per day to house an inmate. And in 2023, there were 6,000 inmates. And if you do the math, it's like 13 or 16 million dollars it just cost just to house the inmates. And if you look at the cost of, average of 18 times, 20 days, $114 per day, the average inmate costs our community about $41,000 throughout their lifetime. And if you look at the 6,000, just the 6,000 that were in 2023, that's $245 million or $241 million over the course of their lifetime. That's just those 6,000.
And that's just to house them.
That's just to house them. That's not law enforcement,
Right.
And all the other things that go along with that. And so we're not, if we aren't fixing the problem, and if we're not helping the people who are causing the problems, it's going to get passed on from generation to generation. And that's exactly what has been happening and will continue to happen. And so instead of spending, I think it's like $25-30 million to build a new jail or add on to the jail, we can maybe start decreasing that size of the need for it, because it's the same story over and over again. It's just different experiences.
Well, I think it's good to increase the size of the jail. It's what you're going to do with the increased size. Is it going to be for incarceration, rehabilitation? Take a more broad approach to this. It's a good investment into the community. It's a good investment into human beings.
Right.
And you mentioned generational stuff. I mean, clearly, it's not working. It's clear. I mean, the numbers don't lie. Those numbers are astonishing to me. I mean, and I believe them. I'm a firm believer in punishment and paying back society. But I think the ultimate payback would be rehabilitating an individual to become a leader to help rehabilitate others. Make it, I always call it a dandemic. Make it a dandemic.
Oh, I like
There's
that.
your new
That's
name,
nice.
Dan.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We have a dandemic.
Dandemic.
You know, make it a Troydemic. You know, let it spread. And we see that through my nonprofit, where musicians come full circle and then they start their own groups helping other people. Like, oh, that's been my dream all along.
Yeah.
Because that's the goal.
Right.
Nobody wakes up and says, I want to be a menace to society.
No.
You know, they don't know any better. They grew up in terrible upbringings.
Oh,
they had, they were beaten. They were, they saw it happen.
I had, one guy, and he's actually a musician. I should connect you to.
Absolutely.
But, he came in and he kind of was looking at me, sideways, like, who's this guy, right? And we walked through this process, and by the end of it, it was like he just sat there and he was just thinking. And he came up to me afterwards, after everybody left, and I asked the guards, I'm like, hey, could you give him a few minutes? And they said, yeah. So he sat there and he talked to me, and here's this big, tough guy, and he broke down crying. And he told me, like, the first time I ever did meth was, like 9. First time I ever got shot up with heroin was I was 11. My dad shot me up.
Unbelievable.
First time he was shot, 4 years old, because his dad took him on a drug debt collection.
Shit.
Yeah.
And they opened fire on him. And so, yeah, it was, you wouldn't believe some of the stories. And I'm going to be doing some follow-ups. And most of those guys in the videos that I have that you saw on my website, most of those I have kept in contact with, and they're out and they're doing awesome. Yeah.
See, that's awesome. That is an immediate impact. Not immediate. That is a direct impact, is what I meant to say. And how fulfilling for you, first of all, and what an example to others. It's like, here's proof. I mean, I need to see, touch, and feel something for it to be real.
Yeah.
There it is, right in front of you.
Well, one of the guys, when I was doing the videos, and he was from the reservation, I've just learned so much. But he said, like, the first time I understood, like, there's something wrong with my family, like, this is not normal. He said it's when DARE came to our school, and they talked about drugs and alcohol and things like that. And he said, but we didn't look at it on the reservation. He said, we didn't look at it like, God, there's something wrong with, our families. We looked at it like, why is the system against us? And we need to protect each other, from the system. It's a system that's against us. What we do is normal, because that's all they've known from birth is alcohol, drugs, abandonment, abuse, all those things. That's what they were. That was normal to them, and I fully understand that. Guy didn't even know he had PTSD. He said, until I came to this class. He said, in the video he even says, to tell you the truth, I like coming in jail because they don't shut the lights off. I can't sleep in the darkness. And he said, it took a square, and affectionately he said this, it took a square like you, Troy, to come in here and relate to us and show us that it, you can go through these things, and this is a problem, and you can change it. And so I that's why I started focusing on my majority of my time on and turn this into a nonprofit, because I can't do it. I can't afford to do it for free, because I need to eat and things.
Troy, tell us where people can find you and to further your cause and to help you with this.
Sure. You can go to beyondthebarriers.com, And on there, he talks about the program and have some videos on there and learn more about the program and the approach. And then you can donate, and that would be because it's all donor funded, and the program. And we have a board of directors, and we're just kind of getting things going now. So it's been going pretty well, and it's exciting.
And as you said too, it's not just for the incarcerated. You help people in management and business and many forms of life to be able to, I mean, how powerful. If you can affect the incarcerated, what can you do for like everyday society and management and retail even?
Yeah, I mean, that's, most people don't need, quote unquote therapy. It's they need they need to understand, and so instead of therapy, you give them the tools and you train them to think differently and show them how. And it's not as hard as you think, and it goes pretty quick. I mean, it's impactful very quickly. And I'm not like it's not because I'm just incredibly smart, when it
Yes,
comes.
you are.
Well, and I'm not I don't mean to put myself that
Chime in here
Don't
on
let
that
him.
one.
Don't let him fool you on that.
but it's not like this was this whole by design. It was just I made it make sense, and if it makes sense to me, and I can, just knowing how people's brains work and how we think and feel and why we react to things and how to change that. I just made it easy. I made it,
How is this process and you developing this or using this cognitive model helped you?
Oh my gosh. Well, it has, it's taught me, I use it every day. I mean, I live my life by this model. It's a habit. I see it, because it's a visual model, and I just see it over and over again. And so I don't have. I mean, this last year's been tough. I tell you, it's been a tough year. There's been a couple times where I was like, man, I don't know how I'm. Wake up in a sweat, but I don't have anxiety anymore. I mean, because I know what I guess I know my worth, and I know how to I know what I have control over, and I know how to control it, and I know how to take control of those things instead of letting external things control me and let external things validate me. I've learned to do that from the inside, and I just have learned how to take control of the things that I have control over.
It's interesting you say you do it from the inside because these wounds are inside out. They're not outside in. It's not scars. It's not things like that. But it is scars. You just can't see them.
Right.
And it's a testament to what you're doing. So I'm gonna unhumble you for a little bit, because you could easily go in to, say, the jail and hand them this piece of paper, say, here's the cognitive model, figure it out. That's not what happens. You go through it, you describe it. I'd say that is a huge part. And that may help visualize it, but it's coming from you.
Yeah.
And that's amazing to be able to gain trust in a short period of time and implement something and have people say, I'm doing this. Because that's a hard decision to make.
Yeah, and it might not even be instant. Sometimes it's just planting that seed.
Right.
I like that one time I walked out of the jail. It's dark and walk out, because by the time I get out of there, it's sometimes about close to 10. And I walk out, and there's a car full of people, and this guy comes out, and he's like, "Hey, man, you're awesome." And I'm like, I looked at him, I said, "Thank you." And he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah." He said, I was in your class in jail. I said, "Oh, hey," he's like, "How's it going?" And he's, "Well, not great, and everybody in here is struggling, to be honest with you." He said, "It's weird." He said, "I was just talking about that model to them. I was trying to describe it." He said, "Do you have an extra copy?" And I said, "Yeah." So I gave him the copy, and he had been in there like a year before, and that was. I mean, you're so sometimes you're just planting a seed. Or one guy came, he was in there, and he said, he came back, and I'm like, "It's good to see you. Not in here, but I always let him know. I don't care what your behaviors are. That's not for me to judge. I'm here because you're a human being and I care about you.
There you go.
And you have value and you have worth. And you made a mistake and you're still learning. And I even tell them, you're probably going to mess up again. That's
and
okay.
you might have been the only person that's ever said that to them.
Yeah. Oh, it is. I mean, a lot of times it is.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
And he's like, he spoke up and in the class. He addressed the entire class. He said, I want to tell you, all you guys. He said, you know me. He said, from out in the streets. He said, I go hard, with drugs. He said, if I'm going hard. He said, I got out. He said, and I was clean for 4 weeks. And he said, and that's the longest I've ever gone. And he said, it's because of this program. And he said, and then I ended up kind of getting back, with the wrong people and doing, and he said, but I kept thinking about this, and this was gnawing at me, knowing I'm messing up, but he said, that's the longest I've ever gone. He said, because of this program. And I've heard that, the same thing. And it's like 4 weeks is a big deal. That's the longest they've ever gone.
That is a big deal.
So how do you further that, Troy? How do you get people from when you can do it while they're incarcerated, right? It's easy for you to kind of get them in that room and in that space, and they're like, you have to be here.
Right.
How do you bring your foundation to the next level to be able to reach these guys that when they're at that breaking point where they're like, I'm going to use again, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to, they don't break the cycle, they continue back into the cycle. How do you get them out of that? Besides, there's a little bit of the mind coaching, but what do you see your foundation doing in the future to get them to that next level?
So there's some different programs out there, and we're really blessed in North Dakota. They have the Free Through Recovery program and the Community Connect program. And that, there's a lot of providers out there that it's the aftercare. It's holding somebody. So if you have a parole officer, it's free through recovery usually, and it's you get out and you create a care plan for them, and then you meet with them weekly. You give them a ride if you need to, and there's also peer support that goes along with that, and you are helping them and staying accountable, helping them stay accountable to themselves and be honest, it's like, yeah, I messed up, I used, okay, what are we gonna do to fix it? How are we gonna change it? It's not like, you're a bad person. And so I actually also work as a care coordinator with a lot of the guys that come out and women that come out. They were like, I want you to be my care coordinator. I'm not able to be a provider because they're not accepting any more, allowing any more providers. Mm-hmm. I'm a provider through an organization called Deep Roots, and Cole Thompson. I don't know if you know Cole.
I don't.
Okay, because he worked at the jail too, and he was a former sheriff, deputy, and he does it because he cares. I mean, kind of the same thing. It's just like the part of the job that he liked was helping, and he's like, just arresting people is not going to change anything. And so I took that, there's a long video. First time I met Cole, we met for 5 hours because he can talk more than I can. It's amazing. But we sat down and I just said, here's this video I want to show you. And I showed him his video and he's like, oh, I know that guy. I arrested him. I arrested his entire family. I know him. And at the end of this video, he looked at me, and I had my curriculum book, and he said, you can put that away. He said, whatever you're selling, I'm buying. He said, I cannot believe I know those guys, and to hear how they were talking, and you can tell they're not just blowing smoke. They're I can't. He said, I'm amazed, and so it was just kind of a natural fit to be a care coordinator, and so I'm loving this because I got goosebumps.
That's the beautiful thing.
Yeah.
You can tell when someone has passion, and that is delivered. And maybe that's part of that trust building too, with some of these individuals. It's like, hey, this guy is not bullshitting us.
Yeah, I mean and that is part of it, because that's another thing that I wanted to know. It's like, what is it that makes us impactful? Is it me? And then if it's me, what am I doing that's impactful? So then not to just, get praise upon myself, but if I can do it, because if I can do it and I know what it is, then I can teach other people to do the same thing, because this is what matters, and how to open up and how to, connect with people, because that's the biggest thing they complain about, is that they have no connection with people. A lot of it's like they don't get me, they don't understand. They went to school for this, and they don't understand though.
You lived it though.
I lived it.
Through it, and I think the main reason why I had asked you to do this is because I was one of those people, like normal people in society. I had a nice upbringing. I never had to deal with the jail stuff. Although, little side note, I had a DUI when I was younger, so I did have to spend a few days in jail. Mm-hmm. And I did meet a lot of the women in there, and I was honestly scared shitless to go in there because I didn't know what I was getting into,
right.
But upon meeting these people, they're people.
Yeah.
They're just people that made a shitty decision, and
that's all they know.
It's all they know. And other people, and you see all of the things, like when the news puts a report out, right? You read the comments.
Yeah.
I wanted you to come on here to give people a different mindset.
Yeah.
Like you said, you coach mindset. And I think society needs to have a different mindset about whom I deem the forgotten. These are people that were never given a chance in life, or maybe they were given a chance and they just made some poor decisions. And I admire you so much for doing what you do.
It's a lot of them, they made, because people are like, just choose differently. It's like I remember I was working at a business, and this guy he'd never had to go through anything, He just never had to go through anything tough. And I said, I want you to behave and just react to things as if you had been abused your entire life. And he said, how am I supposed to do that? I'm like, just if something happens, just react like someone who had been abused their entire life, react the way they would. And he goes, how would I know that? I said, you don't, but just do it. He goes, I can't. I said, why not? He said, because I've never been abused. I said, but you're asking people who have been abused to just react to life as if they hadn't.
That's powerful.
And you don't know how, right? And that's what we're asking these people. And so if you show them how, they do it. I had a guy, and this is no kidding, he sat, and I was talking about myself at the beginning, trying to get my street cred, right? And
I love that.
and this guy, and I was talking about how this program works, and he was from like the Texas Mexican mafia. I mean, he had been to like the worst prisons, and he's like, I'm institutionalized. He said, and I don't know. He said, I don't think about I don't even know what I'm feeling. He said, I just react. I go from 0 to 100 in like a split second. And I said, like what? And he said, one of my buddies, he said, said something. He said, pissed me off. He said, I stabbed him in the face 7 times. Before I knew, I just reacted like that. Like, man. He said, but you have to react, because if you don't, then you're dead. You have to, prove yourself. And he's another one that came up to me afterwards, after we went through the class, and he sat there with this look on his face, like recontemplating everything. He said, hey, I came up and talked to me afterwards, and he put in a request for me to come see him. So that was Wednesday, and I came to see him on Friday. And the first thing he said was, guess what? I broke up a fight. And I'm like, really? He said, yeah. He said, yeah. And this guy one of the guys was even, coming at me when I tried to break it up. He said, and I normally would have just not hesitated. He said, but I de-escalated the situation. He said, I thought about this, and I used this, and it worked. And here he went, and he's saying, I don't know, I can't do that. I'm not even aware of it. And in 2 days, he de-escalated a fight, and I've had that several times.
Okay, I've just had this thought. Now, if I'm a corrections deputy and you have someone in there, an inmate, stopping a fight, it makes everybody safer.
Yeah.
It makes their job, I'm not going to say easier, but now you have people working together.
Yeah.
To respect one another. And
right.
I use the word respect, not fear. It's like,
right.
hey, he'll probably never forget that.
No.
I mean, that's a huge thing. It sounds, maybe as someone who doesn't realize it, that's a huge thing, especially in that environment,
Yep.
to get in the middle of something like that that's not your business. It
Yeah.
can be a physical altercation just for that.
Yep. Well, and I had no idea that noodles are such a big deal in jail. But
Noodles
noodles
are
are currency. And so, like, if you need a haircut, here's some noodles. You know, it's like you trade, you barter with them.
In my
And-
8-day stint, it was coffee. Like you had the little instant grounds, and we.
Oh,
would
yeah?
like-
Well, some guy was disrespecting one of the guys in the video, and that was kind of like at the beginning of this, and I started hearing this, and the guys, he said, they were telling me about this, like, because that one guy, he'd been in like a pretty rough prison, and he'd been in there for like 8 years. He didn't put up with any crap, and you couldn't. Some guy was disrespecting him, and he said, "Go," you know, he owed him some noodles. He said, "Go give me my, effing noodles. Go get," just being a jerk to him. And he said, "God, normally I would have just not hesitated, but everybody from the class was sitting there going, 'Don't let him control you, man. Don't let him control you.'" He said, and I went to my cell. He said, I took some breaths. He said, I went through this model and did what you said. And he said, and I came down with the noodles. I said, "Here's your noodles. Don't disrespect me, though. I showed you respect. Don't disrespect me, okay?" And the guy said, "Yeah, I'm sorry. I was a dick." He said, I was having a bad day, and I was trying to push your buttons."
Isn't that the truth in everyday life?
Yeah.
I mean, it could be a small little thing like that. It's like, but you know what? I loved what he did. He went and did it, and he calmed it
Yeah.
down. He de-escalated.
Yeah.
But he still called him out and held him accountable.
Yeah.
Like, don't disrespect me.
Yeah, he said, and I've never felt more powerful in my life.
Oh, yeah.
I'm way more powerful than I thought I'd have taken him, because now I let that guy put me in Sigma. I let him control me, and that's one of the things that I show them. I'm like, I always say, well, who controls you? I do. And then I show them, nope, you're letting that person control you. And
Yeah.
they're like, ooh, I don't want that. So it's pretty powerful when they and I have now switched to like an hour and a half format, because it just wasn't enough time that hour to get everything in. So, but yeah, they hang in there till, for an hour and a half, and to be able to see when they start telling me like how it's impacting them, and I have these feedback forms, and I'm like, I just want to hear what's working, what's not working. If I suck, tell me I suck, but tell me why, so I can change it. This is your program. I want to make it the best it can be. Of course, they always say, well, can we cover something different? Because I only have one shot, and if I just cover the rest of the curriculum, it's just not that different. But when you understand it with the clarity that this model brings to how you think, and everything that all the curriculum, because I have like 45 different concepts, and I try to get one in with the model, but they have to learn the model first, and you always have new people coming in every week, and so I go through the same thing over and over. And I had one guy there, he was there for 2 years, and he came to every single one, and you learn through repetition over time. And so if you're taking the entire program, we learn it through that model. And so, like, if I talk about conflict management or self-esteem, we learn it through this model, and so it adds clarity, and we practice it, and we add some more, and it's clarity to whatever thing that we're doing, and we practice that, and so now we start thinking in these terms, and we create different thinking habits, because we have anywhere from 40 to 80,000 thoughts a day, and we are only aware of 5% of our thoughts. And I'm like, what are we doing the other 95% of the time? Reacting. We're just reacting to our beliefs and reacting without even being aware of it. And these guys, the unfortunate thing is, it's a perfect place for this program. I wish we had longer time. Right. But we only have, a short period of time. But in the jail, people go to jail, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times before they go to prison. So if we can get them in the jail, and start planting that seed and working on the programming with that, now we can even prevent, long-term stuff. And also, they're not passing that on to the next generation.
You said something in one of your videos that I hadn't thought about, because you changed the way I thought about something. You talked about someone's brain being wired and how they're pretty much wired the same way. And I'm like, I don't know about that. But then I got thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, we kind of do start out wired the same way, and it's circumstances.
There you go.
That thing. Yep. And I'm like, that makes perfect sense.
The hardware is the same.
Right.
How we think and how it works is the same. It's just different circumstances.
Absolutely. And how we react to those, and what we do, and how accountable are we to react to those.
Yep.
And I never thought about it that way. I'm like, that's absolutely right. I mean, that makes perfect sense. I mean, you start with a clean slate. Yeah. Some of us keep a clean slate a little bit longer than others, but and then circumstances, life happens.
Yeah.
You know, whatever your environment. Are you finding that this model is effective through different religious beliefs, cultural aspects?
Yeah.
It doesn't. That's what I was getting at with the brain being wired.
Yeah.
It seems to me that it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't, and it is faith friendly. So like it actually deepens, because I had one of the guys. He said I was sitting in in Sigma. It's their lockdown pod, and he said, and that's where I gave my life to Jesus. He said, a year later, he said, I'm back in the same damn cell. And I'm thinking, God, why? What am I doing? I'm trying to do, and what I'm supposed to do. He said, and I keep ending up doing the same things. He said, just help me, send me something, And he said, I got out of Sigma, and I went to this, I went literally from Sigma to this class. And there's everybody that I've been on the streets with are in this class. And he's like, that another thing that teared me up. He said, yeah, it's God, sent you to us. And, this is coming from somebody that, most of my life, I didn't think I had any value. I didn't think that my daughters would care if I didn't go someplace with them, because how can they care if I'm not lovable, important, or valuable, right? And so, yeah, I mean, to hear that from these, hear these guys, their lives are changing. You hear them say, to their wives, I know I've treated you so poorly. I know I cheated on you is because I'm insecure, and I'm learning how to not be insecure with this program. And then you're realizing you're not just affecting that person, you're affecting their kids, you're affecting their wives. And my dad, he was terminally ill, and we did reconcile. And I had been out, I had published some things in the North Dakota, Prevent Child Abuse North Dakota. They had a book, and I published some of my writings in there. And I was going to speaking engagements, and he knew that. And so when we reconciled, he was like, I don't like the fact that you're out there, kind of talking, saying bad things about me. And I said, I do understand. That would have bothered me too. I said, but I just want you to know that I'm not saying bad things about you. I'm talking about my experiences and what happened. He said, I know, but you're still, I'm not proud of those things, and you're kind of airing that out there. And I'm like, I understand that. I said, but Dad, if I don't do anything with these experiences, you're going to go to your deathbed, and so will I. With these just being traumatic events that brought shame, I said, but if I do something positive with these things, you will be responsible for changing hundreds of thousands of people's lives for generations.
How powerful is that?
And so that's why it's like this has been really because I see that it is changing. I'm preventing kids from going through the stuff that I went through, and from what my dad went through. And I've learned how to forgive, because it's the same process. I see it completely different. I see the things that happened to me, they weren't about me. He didn't do them to me. He did them because of he needed something, you know. Why did he pull the trigger while I'm on the phone and sit silent? Because he didn't believe he was lovable, important, valuable, and he wondered if, you know what, does anybody even care if I died? Now, it's not an excuse. I don't condone it, and I wouldn't tolerate it anymore in my life. It doesn't mean that you just have to say, oh, well, he's hurting. No, you still have to be accountable. But I know it's not about me, and so I don't have to take it, and I don't have to hold on to that and say, why me? It's not about me. It's about him, and he has to deal with it. And I can help in any way, but I don't have to endure it. And so that's just helped me just change my perspective actually, I no longer have anger for my dad. I have compassion and empathy. And the tears that I have when I talk about these things is often about him, because I know how tormented his soul was, you know, throughout his entire life, and he survived every single day. But I don't feel like a victim anymore.
And you're not.
Yeah.
You've taken something very ugly and turned it into something amazingly useful. And I think that's the whole goal. We talk about the victim. Oh, here I go again. You can be a victim. Don't get me wrong. You can be a victim of crime, victim of circumstance. Mm-hmm. But at some point, it's up to you to decide if you're going to remain a victim or if you are going to pull yourself out of it. Use those experiences, good, bad, or indifferent, to help others.
Yeah.
And then it's up to them to be accountable and implement those in their lives. Yep. And maybe they'll work for them, maybe they won't. I tell people my story all the time. This isn't work for me. That's where I leave it. I go, you can try it, but if mine doesn't work, there's 100 other ways to do this. You can't quit. And when I see people tread water in this victim mentality, it becomes almost, and I don't know if they know how. Maybe I shouldn't give them much hard time.
Yeah. They don't know how.
So this is good for me because I would have a disdain for them. It's like, I'd be like, grow up, pussy.
Yeah.
You know, come on. And that's wrong. And this is what I've learned from you, Troy. It's like, well, wait a minute. I want to do it, but I don't know how. And that's quite different.
Yeah.
And that's eye-opening for me. And that was my closed mind thinking it's like, well, you're just a victim. You just want to be a victim because, you know, attention seeker or whatever. And
yeah, a lot of that manipulation, like you talk about in the jail. It's one thing. Like I would ask in the jail, I would ask about, you know, hey, this guy was asking for this, and it used to be the response was, you know, they're going to try to manipulate you, Troy. And I'm like, I'm 55. This isn't my first rodeo. I know when somebody's blowing smoke, right? And this guy just is asking for, you know, this. He's not trying to manipulate anything or do anything, you know. And but that's kind of like, that is the mentality, but it's understandable, you know. And they're seeing the worst, you know, and people are, but they're manipulating and surviving, and that's just how they know how to get through things, or they by force. That's how they, you know, they get through things. But I don't experience a lot of those things that some of the other people do, because they're honest with me because they know I'm not going to judge them, and they know they can be.
Right. You're not going to judge them, and you proved that you're not going to judge them. I always said one of the most valuable things I did in my career was work at the jail. I think everybody should have to work at the jail, just even if it's a short period of time, just to understand that culture, because it is not like the street. It's a controlled environment, but there's a whole sociology to it, and there's a hierarchy, and you get to learn to use your mind and mouth instead of your fists. Use your mind and mouth, especially for de-escalation. And lately, in law enforcement, they're teaching de-escalation. And I think that is a huge tool. It's probably one of the most important tools, is to de-escalate. Because you don't go to work every day like, oh, I hope I get to pull my guns and handcuff out today. That was not me. Maybe some people are like that. It's like, God, I hope I don't have to do that. Yeah,
but when that happens, it's a feeling of, you know, like if you're talking to me this way or you're not listening, And then the meaning that we assign to that, it's the same as the inmates. It's that you don't respect me, and I'm going to show you have to respect me. And like I asked the guys, I'm like, are you confident in your worthiness of respect? Well, yeah. You're positive, yeah. You are deserving of respect, absolutely. Then why is it a threat if somebody doesn't? Because the only time something can be a threat is if there's something vulnerable.
That's a good point.
Right?
I never thought of it that way.
And so if we're feeling vulnerable, something can get hurt. What's being hurt? And they're like, I don't know. And pretty soon they figure it out. My ego. Your ego.
Ego.
Exactly. And so if you're confident in yourself, I'm like, I tell them, if somebody says, this class is stupid and, you suck, Troy, or whatever, and they walk out, and I'm like, all right, we'll see ya. It doesn't bother me because I know I'm confident that I don't suck for the most part. But the program is effective, so, yeah, if you can't see it, because it's not about, just because somebody doesn't see the value in it doesn't mean it's not valuable. And the same thing with us personally. And I teach the guys the same thing. I teach they have intrinsic value. And I walk them through a process that, I ask them, I'm like, do you have kids? And they say, yeah. And I said, were you there when they were born? And they're like, yep. When I started going to the women's class, I'm like, were you there when they were born? They're like, I kind of had to be.
Yeah, I was actually.
Good point. Yeah, I was there. Yeah. But I'm like, were you there when they were born? Yep. And I said, do you remember holding them for the first time? And they said, yeah, absolutely. I said, how was that? And they're like, greatest feeling in the world. I said, when they were born, you're holding them, were they lovable? Absolutely. Were they important, valuable? Yeah. And I said, what do they do to earn that? Nothing. So they're just born and they're lovable, important, and valuable. Yep. I said, when did that go away? When did they stop being lovable, important, and valuable? They're like, never. Like, so they're still lovable, important, and valuable? Yeah. I said, I beg to differ. I said, right around 14, teenage years. Just kidding.
No, I get that. Trust me.
So it never goes away.
Yeah.
What if you were like, oh gosh, look at, they're all wrinkly, cone head. I don't want them. I don't love them. Does that mean they're not lovable, important, or valuable? And they're like, no. Because somebody else is going to love them, and they just are, right? What if they would murder somebody someday? Would you still love them? Would they still be important and valuable? Yeah. So it's not based on their behaviors? No. So you're born and you haven't done anything yet, and you're lovable, important, valuable, never goes away, don't have to earn it, isn't dependent on somebody else's ability to see it, and it's not dependent on your behaviors, right? They're like, right. And I said, so that means that each one of you are just as lovable, important, and valuable as the day you're born. And there's this, no. Like, why not? Because I've done this and this and this, but it's not dependent on behaviors, remember? Yeah. And then they're like, so you have this, you're just born. You don't have to do anything. It doesn't matter what your behaviors are. Those are your behaviors. You still have value, and it's all equal in all of us, each one of us. And so, and they do an attendance sheet, and so the next week, I wish I had one, but I bring each one of them gets a certificate, and it's a birthright certificate, and it's on paper. It's on certificate paper. I print it out, and it says that this is to certify that their name is lovable, important, and valuable, and the intrinsic value bestowed upon so and so was given to them by their creator, and is to be valued throughout or cherished throughout their lifetime. No individual, not even you, can diminish that intrinsic value. And by accepting this certificate, you accept that you are lovable, important, and valuable, and it's signed and dated, and those guys, it brings tears to their eyes, each one of them.
I'm sure it does.
And that's something they value and they hold on to.
Yeah, I'm sure every person listening to this right now is having an aha moment. You don't have to be incarcerated to hear that. You can tell your family, your friends, I think we can take this important piece of advice into your marriage, into your family,
Absolutely.
Into your children. How often do we tell our children that?
We
try to do it through our behaviors, right? But we never say it. And I think that's so important.
Either we just assume they know, or we when we know somebody loves them, we take it for granted because I need to get that external validation from other things.
Yeah.
And I was actually talking to my mom the other day, and we've had our ups and downs because we're both redheads. So is my dad. Yeah. And it was just like it's just gasoline and fire, at times. Not anymore. But my mom, I realized the same things in my mom. Like she doesn't realize how important that she is to us, and to me and my daughters, and so we don't fight anymore. I just she came to the graduation party for my daughter's party, but didn't come to the ceremony. And I text her and I'm like, Mom, where are you? And she's like, aren't you coming? And she's like, no, yesterday was emotional enough. Like, I was hurt, right away. I was like hurt and I was upset and I was angry. I was gonna, and then my daughters were like, where is she? I can't believe I thought this misses for the world. And they were hurt and I was angry with her. And I just thought about it. And I thought, how my mom, how they were raised, and she had to get this validation from everything. She didn't realize that she's lovable, important, valuable, same as me. And so she said, I thought they would want to be with their friends. I really wouldn't matter from there. I'm like, no, Mom, you are very important to them. And I gave her a card this last Mother's Day, and I just want you to know how important you are to my life, and how much I love you, and how much I value our time together. And she just said, I found this card the other day. She said, again, I started crying. She said, that meant so much to me, and we all suffer from that. I shouldn't say all of us, but a lot of us, we don't realize how important that we are to people, and how much that, and it was hard for me when I finally realized that my daughters did love me, and that they were important, or that I was important to them, and that they valued me. Then I had to face the realization that I treated them and did things that hurt them, because I didn't really believe that what I did mattered. How could it if I don't have any value, or I'm not important, or I'm not lovable? I mean, I just thought they don't really love me. They think they do because I'm their dad, but I mean, they don't really love me, because how could they? I'm not lovable, important, or valuable. I didn't see my own worth. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't really think that what I did mattered, really. Because if I could hurt somebody, that would mean that I have value, So coming to terms with that was kind of hard.
It's interesting you bring that up. When I do some training for a nonprofit out of Minneapolis. They're phenomenal. And they take veterans who have been homeless or in hard times, and they bring them back into society. And one of the things I started asking them is to name the 3 most important things in their life right now. And, God, country, money, guns, you get that. Always family. Yeah. Sometimes it's God. Sometimes it's, my kids, aside from the family. Not once has someone said, me. And I think that's important, because that's the foundation of everything, right?
Without you, they're...
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I had it done to me, so I do it to everybody else now.
I've been a victim of Dan's thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, you're on an airplane,
yeah.
and what do they say? If the cabin loses pressure and the mask drop, who do you put it on first?
Yourself.
Because if you don't put it on yourself, and that's not selfish.
No, it is not.
Because I usually don't get like this. I can usually talk about this stuff, but it's just kind of I hurt my back, and got some, I had my high blood pressure because I took some oral steroids, and then my blood pressure was like 180 over 104, and I was, my blood pressure was skyrocketing, and trying to get that under control, and I was nervous, and I remember sitting there, and I'm feeling kind of dizzy, and I'm like, I don't want to have a stroke, not because I don't want to be paralyzed, or I have too much to that I need to do, and I realized that I'm important, I'm important to the people that that was a hard thing for me, because I never thought I was I would be anybody, just like my dad. Nobody really cared, and now it's like I need to have my health so I can I can do the things that I want to do and help the people that I want to help.
I love that. I love the passion. You talk about health. We talked a little bit about, I got to interview Abby last week. I don't know if you've ever been interviewed, but I didn't do much talking. I do a lot of listening. And as we get older, things change. You're back with women, hormones, and different things that can happen, and people change. But I think if we focus on our minds and the circumstances and how to not just mitigate them, but really conquer them like a warrior.
Know how to control them.
Yeah, that is where true change is. And people will see it, like the individual you're talking about. It's like, I know these people, and I can't believe that's coming out of their mouth.
Yeah.
That's amazing to me. That's change. That's effectiveness and immediate feedback. I mean, great.
Yeah, and the outcomes that, we can't control the outcomes, but we can heavily influence them if we can understand, because once we understand this about ourselves and how our brains are working, now we can look at it and see it in other people.
Yeah.
And so now we become other aware. And then we can also, we can also look back at people or things that have hurt us in the past, and we can look at those things and go, like my dad, it's like, I'm not a victim. That wasn't about me. And so now my perspective has changed on that, and we create, new neural pathways, and we get into that kind of detail about how to actually rewire how you perceive things, and it's not rewiring the reality of it. It's rewiring how we see things and how we experience it. And if I know now that, because when we have anxiety, what are we worried about? That's something, because God, when things were going, anybody who has anxiety, things are going well, that's when you have the most anxiety, because it's like, what's going to come along and take that away and hurt me again? And I'm going to feel this way, and I don't want to feel that way. If you know that whatever happens, I can control how I feel. I know I have the tools from the inside. Because otherwise, it's like external things. I'm reacting to external things rather than I can in chaos, in the middle of chaos, I can be calm. I can have peace in chaos. I can't be. I might not be able to be happy, but I can have peace because I create it myself. I don't wait for life to give me peace. I create it, and I can be at peace even when there's chaos around. Because that's what I can control. I can't control what's going on around me, but I can control what's going on inside me. And when you have that control, I don't have an anxiety anymore. And I don't worry about what's going to happen next, because I know I have the tools that I'm going to be okay.
What I'm getting from a lot of this, and you and I had this discussion via text message on the way here. I was doing hands-free, by the way. Voice texting. Good. There's no more need to suffer in silence.
No.
There's no more need for that.
There's no strength in silence.
There's zero strength in silence.
That remember that guy I was talking about who broke up that fight,
Yeah.
and so we're sitting there, and there's glass between us, right? And so we're talking, and he sat. We were kind of getting deep, right? And he was looking at me, and he got all stiff, and I just looked at him, and I'm like, just cry, man. He's like, I haven't cried in 10 years. I'm like, it's about time. Just cry. And he cried. He broke down crying. And I'm like, it's okay to cry. It doesn't mean that you're weak. I cried in front of 400 people once. I was terrified of public speaking. I know, unbelievable. But I cried in front of 400 people, and I thought, how are they going to respect me? And they came up and they said, God, that took courage. Mm-hmm. It takes courage to cry. It doesn't take courage to be silent. We're silent because we're afraid.
Exactly.
And being silent does not take courage. And that we have that, there's a good stoic and there's a unhealthy stoic. Mm-hmm. And, I think a lot of times as men, we feel like we have to be that strong one, like the everybody, and so if I show weakness, and there's some validity to that, But it's knowing how to be vulnerable and how to show that it's okay. My daughter, when she was 4 years old, okay, so Michael Jackson, when he died, right? And I was listening to, what happened with his dad and how that, how he grew up. And it kind of hit home a little bit. And so my daughters were like 4 at the time. And they're looking at me and looking at TV. And I kind of got a little teary-eyed. And my daughter's like, why are you crying? I said, no, it's just kind of sad, that he went through that stuff with his dad. And my daughter, she's like, she hit me on the chest. And she's like, starts crying. She's like, you're supposed to be strong. You're supposed to be strong. And I'm like, where's this coming from? She's 4. And I said, I am strong. I just think it's sad. And it's okay if a man cries. If something's sad. It doesn't mean he's weak. It just means he feels. And because we all feel, we all have emotions. And hiding them doesn't make us strong. It just, we're controlling, we're not controlling the emotion, we're controlling the behavior. I'm not expressing it. I'm still feeling it. And that kind of goes back to just how when a lot of times in our society, they say control the behavior. And so if an event happens and you feel something, what do you want the outcome to be? Well, I don't want to go to, I'm feeling angry, but I don't want to go to Sigma, or I don't want to, get in trouble. So then behave this way. And then you can get that outcome. But you're not controlling the emotion. You're still feeling the emotion. You're just ignoring it. And you're suppressing it. And you're suppressing the thoughts that cause it. You're not changing the emotions, the thoughts, the meaning you assign the event, the beliefs, nothing. You're just complying with the way you are supposed to behave, or suppressing how you really feel, so you behave a certain way and you get the outcome that you want. That's not change.
Absolutely.
What I show people how to do is actually change what they believe about the situation, the meaning they assign to it, change their thoughts and change their emotion. And the behavior takes care of itself, and the outcome takes care of itself. And so you're learning those skills, not just to change the behavior, because that you can only do that for so long.
Oh, absolutely. If you just some of the things that you said resonated with me, where just combining what both of you had talked about. If you suffer loudly, you can find peace in the chaos.
Oh, I like that.
And I think that's a big statement. Most people don't talk about their feelings. They just suppress everything, and then we get what we get in society. But Troy, I want to thank you for doing this with us today.
Thank you for allowing me, yeah.
I can say that I learned so much, and I wondered, the dynamic with your father's story and then Dan in law enforcement. I wanted to take a back seat. I really wanted to see what you guys had accomplished. And wow, what we can take from this is absolutely amazing. And on our Facebook, we will post all of the ways that you can find Troy and how to help his cause, and to just be an advocate, spread the word, even word of mouth. Yeah,
and if you are someone who is, wanting to learn how to do and need help in healing, just reach out and see if this would be a good fit for you, or, I could just talk to you. That's fine.
We love it. Thank you so much, Troy.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Be worthy, everybody. Be worthy.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Kiss My Chaos podcast. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we speak with some of the most intriguing people about their journey from trauma to triumph. If you find yourself in mental crisis, please seek professional medical help immediately.